Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And the walls came tumbling down at Epcot. Welcome to the WDW Fan Zone Show. I'm Stuart, along with John, Darlene, and Jess. And tonight, John's going to talk about part two, or this is part two of John's trip across the pond. And we're going to focus on Disneyland Paris on this show. But before we get into that, we've got the latest, greatest, and best newscast there is around town with Jess. So take it away, Jess.
Hello, everybody. All right. So by the time you're hearing this, Test Track is now closed. We do not have a timeline, but it appears the permit is until February, but we don't really know. There's no, but apparently it's going to be like completely different. So we'll see what that brings for us. The Frontierland Shooting Arcade will have its last day on June 23rd to make way for a new DVC lounge. A sad change, because that has been a opening day attraction at the Magic Kingdom, but an interesting change to see, what they're going to put there. The VI pass holder days ends on June 26th, with the pass holder lounge in Morocco closing this Tuesday, June 18th. And if you haven't gotten your Stitch pass holder magnet, that is available until June 26th as well. And that will be in Epcot. Over at Hollywood Studios, The Little Mermaid and Musical Adventure will be the name. And more details have been shared. Daughters of Triton and Kiss the Girl will be added as the songs. And it will be pretty much a brand new show. It's opening in the fall, this fall. And another opening that's more current, more closer to now, is the Country Bears. And that will be opening on July 17th. And there's been some cool things to see if you want to check that out on the Disney website and a couple other websites. They have like pictures and things that you can see that it will be like. So very exciting to see that. Don't forget to check park hours before planning your trip, and check again once you arrive to see if they've changed, because they always do. And the Walt Disney World area is expecting summer patterns with highs in the 80s and low 90s, and storms expected every day. They don't storm all day. Especially this past week, it was expected to rain all day, every day, and it was just pockets of rain. So just be careful, watch out for that, and be ready for it. And find a place to go if storms are coming. And that's all I have for today.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Great as always.
All right. Thank you so much.
Have a great rest of the week, Jess.
Soon. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. And the rest of you, hang in there with us. We're going to get to John in a moment. Jess mentioned the shooting arcade in Frontierland. Now, I've heard the same thing a few people have reported already, that even though Disney hasn't officially said anything, it's expected to be turned into a DVC lounge.
Yeah.
Unofficial. So until Disney says something, it will remain unofficial.
Right. Yeah. It would be nice to have one in each park that you could go to.
Yeah, that would be the third one. There's one in Epcot. That would be Magic Kingdom. The other one is in Hollywood.
Top of the world. Top of the world lounge.
That's right, in the Contemporary.
Bay Lake Tower.
Yeah. That's the only hotel one that we have.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we'll see if they put one in each park, but
yeah.
Looks like they're heading that way. All right. So anyway, John, still fresh in your memory, your trip?
Well, it's hard to believe it's been 2 weeks, but
I know, right?
Well, and for anybody that still has a hankering for doing the shooting arcade, you can go over to Disneyland Paris and you can do the shooting arcade there. It'll cost you €3 for, I think, I don't remember if it was 10 shots or 20 shots. I forget.
And how much is the plane fare?
Well, of course, you're not going to go to Disneyland Paris just to do shooting arcade. And that wasn't the only thing that I went to do. In fact, the shooting arcade was the very last attraction that we did in the 4 days that we were there.
Oh,
so
wow.
I very much wanted to make sure I got to do it because I know it was going to be closing in Magic Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there for 4 days. It was at the end of our ABD trip. It was a long trip, but it was nice to be able to go and switch gears and be a part of the Disney parks over there. It's to get to Disneyland Paris, it's out in the country somewhat. So it's in Paris, but it's probably about a 45-minute drive outside of the city. So
So
you're
it's like a suburb.
well, yeah, but well out. It's more in farmland around. It's surrounded
Really?
by farmland, really.
Wow.
Yeah, you can get there easily on their subway system, on their train system. So you can go right downtown. And when we were there before, we had done that. But there's a big station right in between, well, right at the entrance to the two parks. The way
Mhm.
Disneyland Paris is situated is they have two different theme parks. They've got their Disneyland Park, Disneyland Paris, and then they have their Studios Park, which the entrances to them are basically adjacent to each other.
Oh, that's like Disneyland almost.
Yeah,
Like
so
they're right across from each
Disneyland
other.
has an Esplanade,
Yeah.
and Disneyland and Anaheim, they're kind of across from each other. So you
Yep.
walk out and go
Exactly
past the
across, yeah.
Esplanade. Whereas in Disneyland Paris, if you come from a parking lot or you come from the train or you're coming from any of the Disney hotels, except for the Disneyland hotel itself, you come and you go right to go to Disneyland Paris and you go left to
Mhm.
go to the studios. So very convenient. And you can walk there from their hotels. It might be a 10-minute, 15 to 20-minute walk from all their hotels. But except for the Disneyland Paris hotel, the Disneyland hotel, you come out of the side entrance from the hotel, from the lobby, and the gates to get in are right there. So it's extremely convenient. And in fact, if you look out the windows from the hallway that's on the second floor in the Disneyland hotel, you're looking directly into the entrance you're into the park itself. So it's situated right there at the entrance. And we were splurging this time. We actually did stay. We hadn't stayed there the last time, but we stayed at the Disneyland hotel this time. Very convenient.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah. And the Disneyland hotel, you see a lot of princesses in Magic Kingdom where you've got the little girls have their dresses and they've been to Bibbidi Bobbidi too. Bibbidi Bobbidi.
John will go down into the lobby of the hotel. Little girl, come here.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
No,
Well,
I'm joking.
you
not true.
can't
He didn't
walk you can't walk down the hallway in the Disneyland hotel without passing 5 or 6 princesses. They are dressed to the hilt there. They're all over the place.
Wow.
But I guess if you're staying at the Disneyland hotel, you can probably afford to have your little girl dressed up in a nice princess dress and get her hair made up and all that.
What is the price comparison for the Disneyland hotel to a Walt Disney World hotel?
Oh, I got it as a package. So we got the hotel and basically 5 days to the parks all together as a package. So I'm going to have to try to extrapolate. My guess is it's probably comparable to the Grand Floridian or the Contemporary, depending on we didn't get a discount as far as I know, but maybe even a little more since we're talking euros instead of US dollars.
So for Darlene to really understand, you know how they do on Yelp $signs for the more expensive? How many
$2 or $3
signs are there? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm just guessing, and I didn't look ahead of time to compare what the hotel rates would be at the time of the year when we're there versus the summer versus any other time. We were there at the very end, the last week in May.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you some reference point. So it seemed for the Disneyland Hotel, I've checked in the past, the Disneyland Hotel is definitely more expensive than their other ones. I think probably the closest one is Hotel New York Art of Marvel.
Okay.
Is probably the next one, or the Newport Bay. But Disneyland definitely more expensive than them. I don't know how much extra a night, but
How was the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's definitely not inexpensive. It's definitely pricey. Like I said, we splurged. We knew we were going to have to pay this back on our Disney Visa card over months.
Did you eat in the resort at all? And if so, was the food just as good as you would get at Walt Disney World or Disneyland?
As part of our package, we had breakfast every day in the hotel. So Disneyland Hotel.
Real breakfast or continental?
Pardon me, a full breakfast.
Oh, good.
Full breakfast. They had a breakfast buffet, and it had lots of really good food. It was always busy. There were always families coming and going. If you got there a little bit later, you'd even have to wait in a little bit of a line to get into the restaurant. But a lot of times we would have a seat looking out the window into the entrance of the park. So seeing people going into the park. So again, a great location. The food was very good. So we paid to have breakfast there in Royal Palace. They had a few other restaurants there too that we didn't go to. We specifically wanted to do dinners, and we did book our dinners ahead of time. We booked our dinners in the parks, and we'll talk about them as we go. But why don't we go ahead and get started with our first day?
All right. Well, before you get into first day, do you mind if I ask, what are the park hours like there?
The parks were open 9:30 in the morning. And if you stayed at one of the Disney resort hotels, you could get in an hour early. So the resort guests could get in at 8:30.
Oh.
So not as early really as the Walt Disney World resorts or the
I guess
Walt
the
Disney
French
World.
like to sleep.
Well, you know what? There were definitely people ready to go.
Yeah.
Definitely people ready to go when they were opening up at 8:30 for the resort guests.
What time did they close?
The studios closed earlier. I'm trying to think there. I'm thinking it was around 8:30.
Okay.
But the Disneyland resort was not closing until 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And they would have their nighttime show. They have two different parts to it. They have a projection show on their castle, the Sleeping Beauty Castle. But
it just there 2 weeks ago, John. Come on. Remember.
Well, I'm trying to think what their French word is for it. The French word is Sleeping Beauty, but it's much longer. It's much bigger than Sleeping. I would actually say that it's my favorite castle from any of the Disney parks that I visited. I've been to Tokyo Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disneyland Anaheim, and Disneyland Paris. It's my favorite castle of any of those four. Now, Tokyo Disneyland has the same Cinderella castle as Walt Disney World does.
Oh.
They look, I don't think you can really tell the difference. But it has its own unique architecture, and it's got these interesting trees that have square greenery that's trimmed. Like it looks like it came out of a Disney animated feature. But yeah, beautiful. And they have a dragon in the bottom, underneath a dragon animatronic underneath the castle there.
Oh wow.
But they have projections on there at night, and along with the projections, they have a drone show right there at the castle.
Oh.
So they have that for 10 minutes, and then they have fireworks after that. But everybody's lining up at 10 minutes to 11 to see that drone show. And And we were there. We didn't get there the first night, but the second night we came and we were all ready to go. We had gotten a place staked out and the place was packed. But we had gotten a place staked out where we could see it well. 5 minutes before the show, they announced the drone part of the show was not going to go off. So they apparently have to be careful with weather. I'm assuming it was wind. It was not raining at the time, although it rained every day that we were there. So that was something we had to deal with every single day. There was always rain, but it wasn't raining at the time. So I can only guess that they either had a technical issue or there was some restriction around wind. Oh, so let's talk a little bit about Disneyland Paris. They definitely have the same feel as other Disney Magic Kingdom type parks, Disneyland Magic Kingdom type parks. As I said, they've got a very different castle. They have a dragon underneath the castle that you can go down into the caves to see. It's an animatronic, so it moves, it growls, it has eyes that glow, and I think it has like steam puffs that can come out of its nose like it's breathing fire.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool.
Lost you there, Stuart.
Yeah, you're muted, Stuart.
I said, is the dragon's name Bob Chapek?
You know, I don't know what his name in French is, so I didn't. But that's certainly a difference. They have their own version of the Haunted Mansion, which it's called the Phantom Manor. You've probably heard that before. The Phantom Manor from the outside looks kind of like the Addams Family house. So it's old wood. It's kind of very, very rustic looking, almost, I don't want to say Old West looking, but kind of like an Old West town in that it's all wood from the outside. Very different from Disneyland, Anaheim, very different from Walt Disney World, the Magic Kingdom. There's a lot of similar elements inside, but there's a lot of differences too. There's a bride, but it's used in a different way. And in their graveyard, instead of having a graveyard, it's more of an old Western town. So that's one of the things that I've noticed about the Disneyland park there is the Frontierland area is very popular. So they seem to like that old West feel. And I just heard from the person who traveled with me that they think it looks like the Bates Motel from Psycho. So very different on the outside, some similar things inside, but a lot of different things too. And they do have a phantom. So it's called Phantom Manor, and there is a phantom character animatronic that pops up. You see them with the bride, and you see them a couple of different places elsewhere within the attraction. So there are things that I like better about it, and then there are things that I like better about the Haunted Mansion in Magic Kingdom. So it doesn't quite have some of the elaborate things like the upgrade that we had several years ago at the Magic Kingdom with the MC Escher thing, parts of it. So I don't think it's quite as long as the one in the Magic Kingdom, but I could be wrong. So, but definitely worthwhile seeing. Although it was interesting, a lot of times there would only be like a 20-minute wait.
Oh.
And there were other attractions that we have a corresponding attraction at Magic Kingdom in Florida, like Peter Pan's Flight. Peter Pan's Flight was always over an hour wait.
Wow.
And sometimes, an hour and a half.
Wow.
Trying to think, there was a character meet and greet that I think was more for the princesses. I forget the characters, but I was thinking it was princesses. That would be 2 hours long. And you'd see these big, long lines of families waiting to get there.
I can just picture these little kids. Mommy, Daddy, we want to meet Mickey. We want to meet Mickey. So you spend 2 hours waiting online. A few years later, the kid goes, I can't believe I waited online 2 hours to see a guy in a costume. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So I was surprised. Phantom Manor, you could have a half an hour wait, maybe a little bit more, but a lot of times it'd be like 20 minutes. So it was not too bad. Like I said, the Peter Pan's flight, which we never quite got on the Peter Pan's flight while we were there. It was
Oh.
always over an hour. We tried to get on one day. So one day we went in for the early entry, 8:30. We were there ready to go as the park opened. It was great. The park was empty. Now, one of the challenges that they have with their early entry, half of the attractions are not open yet in the park.
Oh.
So the lines can become very long very quickly because you have all these resort guests coming in, but there's a limited set of attractions where they can go. And so Peter Pan's flight would get very long pretty quickly. They have a Big Thunder Mountain Railroad there, which is very popular. So that could get long pretty quickly. But when we tried to go on Peter Pan's flight, we were there 5 minutes after the park opened.
Wow.
And the attraction was down.
Oh
So
really?
So we said, okay, we're going to walk 5 minutes over to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And I rode it, but Kelly was having trouble with her back, so she didn't get on it. But I rode it, got on very quickly, came back. We left there. It said either a 10 or a 15-minute wait for Peter Pan's flight, which was great. So it was a 5-minute walk back till we got there. It was a 50-minute wait. So people were just
That
flooding
sounds
in.
like some of the attractions here.
Pirates, I really like their pirates. They have some very different effects there. They actually have a couple of pirates that are swashbuckling, that they have sword play. So there's two audio animatronics that are in a sword fight.
Wow.
And they also have a big lift for the boat that you're on. So you go up a very big long incline and then down a bigger hill. So again, a lot of similar effects within it, but also a lot of very unique things in it as well. It also has a restaurant called Captain Jack's where you are dining within the attraction.
Oh.
So similar to Disneyland Anaheim, where they have the Blue Bayou.
Yes.
But in the Blue Bayou, you're in the beginning part and you see a lot of fireflies. It doesn't feel like the Caribbean at the beginning of it. Whereas the Captain Jack's restaurant is very Caribbean themed, and it's in more of the middle of the attraction. Well, maybe not quite, but it's when you're in the attraction and you feel like you're in Pirates of the Caribbean. That probably sounds a little strange, but so they have that there. So Pirates was a pretty popular attraction. Now it would go up and down. It was probably similar to Phantom Manor. It wouldn't get to be like an hour wait. But, let's see here. What I'm trying to think of some of the other. One of the other things that I think is very interesting about the Disneyland Paris park, they have a main street, and they have a main street that feels, I would say, more like Disneyland Anaheim than Magic Kingdom's. But they also have these arcades. And what the arcades, they're these walkways on either side of the back of the shops and the restaurants on Main Street. So you can walk down the main street, or you can walk down these two arcades. And they're nicely themed. They've got memorabilia and little displays that are Americana, like the Statue of Liberty and the history of the Statue of Liberty, showing pictures of it being made. So it gives you 3 different paths that you can walk down to get to the end of Main Street without actually.
That would have been wonderful here in Florida.
And it's great when it's raining too.
Yeah.
So it certainly rains enough in Paris. It rained, like I said, all of the 4 days we were there. So it was a nice way to walk down. to stay out of the rain if it was raining, but not to have it be so crowded. You know what it's like
Mhm.
in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
It's hard to go either direction there. A little
Mhm.
bit easier. And you can also get into the back of the restaurants and the shops there too. So if you
Oh,
wanted to get into the ice cream or you wanted to get into the Emporium, you can go in the back entrances or in the front entrance.
really?
Yeah.
That's very nice.
So does that make it easier for people to skip out without paying their bill?
I didn't ask anybody.
Jeez Louise.
The thing Stuart thinks of.
Mm-hmm.
I was an investigator for several years.
Oh, well, yeah, he's got me trying to talk to young children, which I shouldn't do.
Right.
Be a little bit
Well,
creepy.
stop talking to them.
Mm.
We also had dinner. So I said we planned our dinners ahead of time. We had dinner in the Disneyland park, and we had dinner at Walt's. I love Walt's. It's heavily themed to Walt Disney and his history with the park. There's a bust of, there's so many details in that park, and it's got a very Americana feel to it. And we had a large group. I think we had I think it was seven. We had seven of us dining there together. And we had a window looking out onto Main Street. So we were on the second story looking out a window onto Main Street. And we got to see an evening parade go down the street
Oh, really?
right out the window.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was very cool. The food was very, very good. And we got to see Tony Baxter.
That's right.
Yeah.
So while we were there dining,
All the way to Paris just to see Tony Baxter.
we actually saw Tony Baxter twice. Not quite at a time when it felt like it would have been reasonable to walk up and ask him to take a picture.
Is it true he thought you were stalking him?
Well, he admonished me about talking to young children on the street. No.
By the time the show's over, John's gonna have the police at his door arresting him.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
all because of Stuart putting weird ideas into people's heads. Yeah, he was busy, heavily engaged with talking to cast members. So there were people that I'm sure were guiding him around, and other cast members working there. And it would have been interrupting. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It would have been, but I grabbed it. So the closest I did to stalking was to grab his picture while he was busy talking. Oh, I also heard that while we were there that I think it's Bill Farmer, the voice of Goofy, was there.
Yeah.
And the voices of Mickey and Minnie were there, and some other.
There must have been something going on then.
I think there was. I think
Yeah.
there was some event going on. So we
Nice.
didn't see everybody else, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Trying to think if there's anything else. So, like I said, it was raining. We didn't get there the first thing in the morning. We probably didn't get there till early afternoon. So between the rain, getting there later, getting our bags and things like that, we didn't get to see everything in the park in that first day, but we saw as much as we could and had a great first day. And at least when we were done for that day, we walked to the entrance and into the hotel, into our room, and they had beautiful. They've redone the entire Disneyland hotel there, and the rooms were simply beautiful. Now, we didn't have, I think some rooms had special effects, like you could get these firework effect lights in your room. We didn't have that within ours. So at least we weren't the upper crust of the upper crust.
Oh boy, yeah, I had a couple of jokes there, but
Yeah.
I'm going to refrain from saying them because it might get us kicked off YouTube this week.
Yeah. The fact that you could walk into the resort that easily is very nice.
Yeah, we we did walk over one day. It had been a while since we'd been there, but we did walk over one day to get to Hotel New York, which is the next closest hotel.
Okay.
And after you walk out of the entrance to Disneyland, you go through their, it's not called Downtown Disney, the Disney Village. They have a Disney Village.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's where they have restaurants. They've got a World of Disney type store there, number of other shops, but it's third party restaurant like you would see at Disney Springs.
Okay.
And to walk through there and over to the Hotel New York and into there, it's 10 to 15-minute walk. So it's close, it's adjacent to it, but you have to go through the entire Disney Village. So it's it's over a 10-minute walk to get there.
That's not
So,
bad though.
no, it's not. It's not. Like, so if you were in Walt Disney World, it takes 10 minutes to get from the entrance to Magic Kingdom to Contemporary,
Right.
or even longer if you're going to the Grand Floridian. So you know, you don't. It's no longer than if you were staying at Magic Kingdom and went to the closest resorts there.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one other thing that we did that first day, and that was we did go over to the studios just to take a quick peek in, and we did go take a ride on Remy's Ratatouille Adventure because, as I've said on a recent podcast, that right now that's my favorite ride in Walt Disney World. But we did go over to we did go over to Remy.
Is it exactly the same in Disneyland Paris?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. There is one difference.
It's in French.
No. It's so in Epcot, it's both French and English.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes Remy's speaking in French, sometimes he's speaking in English, sometimes Linguini's speaking in French, sometimes he's speaking in English.
Oui, oui.
And I think only you have to oui, oui. The dialogue, I think, was the same. The track, the entire storyline was the same. The way that you board the vehicles, either Emile or Remy, it was all looked the same. The thing that's different is you don't have 3D glasses.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, there's no 3D glasses. And I don't think you miss out. I mean, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there was something going on, but I didn't feel the water effects nearly as much as I do in Epcot. So when Weenie is mopping the floor,
yeah,
or the champagne bottle pops and you get blown back up, you get that water effect in Epcot. I only felt a tiny spray when we were there, so it wasn't quite as strong, but everything else was the same. Now, the one thing that is much better about Remy in Disneyland Paris is there is a Remy's Bistro restaurant adjacent to
that would have been nice if they had
that would have been
here.
very nice.
It between Walt's and Remy's, those were our two favorite restaurants.
Really?
So in Remy's, at the end of the movie, when Remy is dining with all of his family, and he's sitting at these spools of thread, or everything's really big around you, that's what the feel is like. So heavily themed, and you're sitting in that, and it had the Christmas lights that are up above and the leaves and things like that. So very, very themed to that part of the movie. And when you are getting off the attraction, you can look in the windows into the restaurant. And so it entices you to want to go dine at the restaurant. So very happy.
Maybe they'll close Chef de France and put Remy's there.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would love that.
I would absolutely love that too.
And where would you like them to put Walt's?
I know, right?
Well, you know what? Walt's fits so well on Main Street. It really
Oh, it would.
it belongs on Main Street again
Tony's Town
because
Square, Waltz.
because it's
I would make
turn
that
of the
trade.
century, turn of the 20th century Americana.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good trade.
Mhm.
Tony's for Waltz.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh, there's no comparison.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on though. Now they got my two ideas going towards Disney.
Darlene's pushing to move on because she has to go to sleep.
Yeah, Cinderella here. We have to make sure she gets home in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, before my pumpkin turns into, my coach turns into a pumpkin again with my little mice.
The next day we did go over to the studios more, and I do have to say that the studios park is lacking. And to make things worse, right now it's under construction. So the walls that used to be in Epcot,
they moved them there.
They moved them there.
They moved them there.
Every wall that you saw in Epcot is now in the Disney Studios park in Paris.
Now, when you say it's lacking, is that and that there are walls up? Is that so? Is that because maybe Disney has noticed that it's lacking there and they're doing something to?
Oh, they have a huge expansion plan.
Yeah, I know they're under expansion there. Yeah,
they have a huge expansion. They're going to have multiple new lands, including a Frozen land.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So what rides were available?
They have their headliner attractions right now, I would say, are Crush's Coaster, which Crush's Coaster was new when we were there in 2008.
Okay.
And Crush's Coaster has the same kind of movement as Cosmic Rewind, except Cosmic Rewind goes faster and has music, and it's not themed to Finding Nemo. It's not Crush's Coaster. So I actually had a feeling of how Cosmic Rewind was going to feel before I ever got on it, because I had been on Crush's Coaster. So Crush's Coaster goes slower, but it turns left and right to direct you toward the part of the story they want you to see, which is, so I got a little woozy when I rode that back in 2008. And I got a whole lot woozier when I did Cosmic Rewind, because you were going faster at the same time you were doing that.
Okay.
So very similar. So Crush's Coaster, probably the busiest attraction in the Disney Studios park. That was usually over an hour. Remy is a popular attraction there too. That would usually although if you waited till the end of the day, the line definitely came down. And their Tower of Terror. So they have a Tower of Terror there. I'm sorry. That one, the one other one I would say is Web Slingers. So in the Studios park, they do have an Avengers Academy. So they have Web Slingers.
And we get nothing. We've got nothing here at Disney World. When I say nothing, we've got things, but
we need to work through licensing, don't we?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I wish they would get that licensing we're out too. I agree.
Yeah, maybe in my next lifetime.
So they have the Web Slingers there. They did have a Spider-Man that was a live cast member dressed in a Spider-Man costume who would climb around up on the buildings. So it wasn't the animatronic like they have in Disneyland that does the flips and things, but it was a live actor dressed as Spider-Man that would talk down from their perch up on the buildings to the guests there. That was pretty cool. But the other attraction in the Avengers Academy it felt very much like Space Mountain, only darker. So it had this theming to it had Captain Marvel in it, and I forget what other characters were in it, but Captain Marvel was one of the big characters in it that would be projected up. But a lot of the time, you were in darkness. So it was like a very, very dark Space Mountain that had that kind of feel. Well, actually, let me clarify things a little bit. So this attraction is called Avengers Assemble Flight Force. What it used to be was the Aerosmith rock and roller coaster. That's what it was when we were there in 2008, but they've rethemed it. So, but if you think about rock and roller coaster, if you made it very dark, it would feel a lot like Space Mountain. But it was that track, and it was very dark. It was very disorienting. So I was looking forward to getting on the attraction, but after I rode it, I didn't feel like riding it again because it was too dark. It didn't have enough of the Avengers theme in it while you were riding it. Nice pre-show, but I thought it was lacking. Definitely the Web Slingers was the better attraction. I haven't been on Web Slingers yet out at Disneyland Anaheim. I'm looking forward to seeing that in September. I'm assuming it's very similar. The challenge with Web Slingers here was a lot of the pre-show is in French. Now, as you just were about to get on, they did have a billboard that had instructions in English so that you knew how to move your arms to try to fling your webs into, excuse me, to move things in the attraction on the screens to get points. So Web Slingers is a game where you're trying to build up points, but you don't have a joystick. You don't have any of that thing like the Buzz Lightyear attractions. You're just moving your hands, and there's something sensing how your hands move, and then you can see the effects of this webs that you're slinging in it.
Yeah.
So again, I'm assuming it's like the one in Disneyland out in Anaheim. So Web Slingers, Remy, Tower of Terror, and Crush's Coaster. Those are the 4 big attractions there. Beyond that, there's some other smaller attractions. They do have a brand new show there that's it's themed to the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland, and it has Alice fighting against the Red Queen in this competition where it's got rock music. It's supposed to have, I think, skateboarders or BMX bikes. It's in the same location where they used to have what were the stunt show, the car stunt show that used to be at Hollywood
Lights,
Studios?
Motor, Action.
Yeah.
Lights, Motor, Action. So they used to have a Lights, Motor, Action. It's been completely rethemed now. The evening we were there to see the show, it had been raining, and in fact, it was still lightly raining. They had people off squeegeeing down the different surfaces and the stage, and so they were able to put the show on, but they weren't able to have people on the BMX bikes or skateboards, or I'm not quite sure what they were supposed to have there. It still was a good, interesting show, but there was a piece to it missing. So that's one of the big shows that they have there. I'm trying to think what other shows they had.
Beauty and the Beast?
No,
Yeah.
no, they don't have that.
Can I make a suggestion? Bring it over there and give us something.
There you go.
And that's only because it's a great show. It's only because I've seen it a million times.
Right.
They have a very small Toy Story kind of land over there, but instead of having Slinky Dog Dash, they have this ride that rotates around in a circle that is called Slinky Dog Zigzag Spin. So it's just a very small ride. They have the paratroopers, Sarge, and all of the toy soldiers, but that was closed, where they take you up in a parachute and drop you. Not super exciting.
Is there Toy Story Mania there?
They do not have Toy Story Mania, no.
Wow.
So they had the toy soldiers drop. They had the Slinky Dog. When they have an RC Racer, but it's kind of like if you've seen a pirate ship ride within
Oh God, where it goes up and down.
swings like a pendulum.
Yeah.
Only it's RC Racer on a track, and it goes
Oh,
up and down on each side. So I didn't do that one. That
why
makes,
would they put that in a Disney park? No.
yeah.
No,
So
no, that's like Six Flags. No, get it out of there.
yeah, so a very small Toy Story Land, and they had a very loosely connected Cars Land. They did have a sign that says "Welcome to Cars Land," and they had these two simple cars related attractions. Oh, I'm sorry, they do have a Buzz Lightyear laser blaster, but is that in that's in the Disneyland park? That's not in the Studios park, so it wasn't in the Toy Story Land.
Okay.
But they have this little car ride. We didn't get on it. It was more for kids that spin around. They have a thing called Cars Road Trip, but what that was is where they used to have the studio tour, the backlot tour. They've just rethemed it to be cars, and so you'll see little vignettes with Mater or Lightning McQueen or some of the Cars characters, and then in the very back they still have Catastrophe Canyon, but the tanker truck there is themed as a Cars truck with the eyes on the windshield, and so you can still get on the Catastrophe Canyon there, themed to the Cars.
And I'm going to ask a question that all our listeners out there are asking. Do they have cozy cones?
No, they don't have
Oh.
cozy cones. Yeah, so
That was my question.
Their Cars Land, there's no comparison, none whatsoever. Cars Land for a land in a park is my absolute favorite land.
Yep, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
And it was just a couple of attractions thrown on the side of the road, and it was kind of mixed in with Toy Story Land and where Remy is. So they all kind of ran together. It's a small park. It's very lacking, as I was saying. You do have some headliner attractions, but you walk one direction to see some things on one side, and you walk the other direction to see things on the other side. On the left is Avengers Campus and Tower of Terror.
Mhm.
On the right is this little Toy Story Land and this little Cars Land and the little France neighborhood. So when you get to Remy's, it looks very similar to that area behind the France Pavilion in Epcot. Then it leads to the Remy attraction. So you've got the creperie on the right.
And then you've got the creperie on the right?
You are just on top of things today, aren't you? You're looking for them. So I would say that's one of the best themed areas within the studios there. So the area where the Remy's Bistro restaurant is and the Ratatouille, they don't have a creperie or a creperie. The Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, they also have these booths outside. So you can buy different foods and drinks, almost like a mini Epcot event where they've got the booths for the festivals, but just for this French area. So that's very well themed, and the Avengers Campus is well themed. But other than that, there's this big studio building that you used to go through when you came into the studios, and you had to walk through that big studio building, and they had shops and food, and it was dark inside and neon. It was a pretty little entranceway. Well, that's all closed down as they're doing the refurbishment. Wow. Some of the attractions were closed. So it's a half-day park at best, I would say. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, unless you wait in line to get on all the best attractions.
So
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I'll come back. So go ahead and ask your question.
I see you're sporting a Disneyland Paris t-shirt.
I am.
Yes, I
Did
like
you find the merchandise there superior to what they have here in Disney World?
I would not say superior. So they do have a good amount of Disneyland Paris specific merchandise. And I think I've talked about this in the past. When we went to Tokyo Disneyland doesn't have, or at least when we were there in 2016, they didn't have Tokyo Disneyland themed merchandise. They had kind of generic character merchandise. So
Stuff you find at Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, they had their own designs to them that maybe you wouldn't find other places, but I felt it very lacking in Tokyo Disneyland merchandise. It was really just characters. But so they had a lot of good merchandise. They had a lot of Remy merchandise. They had more Remy merchandise than they do at Epcot.
Oh, really?
So we found some really good stuff there. Stitch is huge. Stitch is huge in Disneyland Paris.
What's wrong with people?
Well, Stitch is a character. I like Stitch as a character. They don't have. Well, they do have one Stitch's attraction, and it's a show. And they had basically the same show when we were there in 2008. So it's a Turtle Talk with Crush kind of attraction, only with Stitch. So there was a story behind it, but you could talk to Stitch, and Stitch talks to the kids and the people.
I'd like to talk to Stitch. I've got one thing to say to Stitch: go away.
Yeah, well, so they're not going to. I don't think they're going to talk to Stuart. I think there's going to be a big X on.
That ever happened to Stitch was when they opened up that attraction in the Magic Kingdom, and after one day, it was gone.
Well, yeah. So the history of Stitch attractions in Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World, is not good. But anyway, people seem to really like. There is a lot of Stitch merchandise there, and it sells well.
Wow.
You know, I love most of the Disney characters, but Stitch, no, not for me.
Well, I do like Stitch personally. One thing we didn't talk about, so they don't have Genie Plus there.
They're smart.
Well, so what they do have though is they have, for their bigger attractions, you can purchase front of line for a lot of individuals. So it's like they have individual lightning lane for a lot of their attractions. But it is pricey.
Yeah, I know.
So for instance, if you wanted to do, and I took some screenshots here from their app. So they do have their own app, and you can purchase it in the app. If you wanted to do Peter Pan's Flight, 16 euros per guest for that one attraction. If you wanted to do Phantom Manor, it was only 7 euros. If you wanted to do Pirates of the Caribbean, it was only 5 euros. Big Thunder Mountain, 16 euros. So
I'm looking it up. 16 euros to US dollars is $17.12.
Yeah, it's more expensive, right? Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast, 12 euros. Let's see, It's a Small World, 5 euros.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
It would be more expensive to do those individual attractions than it would be to get Genie Plus.
Yeah, you're right. Now, how much is a theme park ticket per day there? Roughly?
Yeah, again, mine was in my package, so I'm not quite sure.
I'd
have to do some research on there. So
let me see if I can look it up quickly here.
I didn't take a picture of Crush's coaster, but my guess is that was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 euros, similar to those more expensive ones. We were talking about the Small World. It's a Small World. I love their It's a Small World there.
Do you?
The colors are so vibrant. I think that's what it is. And it just looks so clean and new and fresh and vibrant colors. I just love their It's a Small World there. They do have the external facade similar to what they do in Disneyland in Anaheim. But their external facade is also very vibrant with the colors.
Is it?
as compared to more muted whites and golds and things like that in Disneyland Anaheim. So love that. They do have the Fantasyland attractions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So yeah, sorry. A one-day ticket is roughly the equivalent of $64.11, depending on the time of year you go, the day. But that's it. So it's a lot cheaper to get into the park per day.
Okay.
Um,
So they're giving you a cheaper base
and
price.
that's their low base ticket. There were upgraded tickets from there.
Yeah.
I just went with the low base ticket.
Yeah. I will say that we didn't really use that. There was one time we used it for one attraction, and that was it. And it was because, as I said, there was a rain off and on every day while we were there. So that put a damper on things. So there was one time that we just felt, and we went to get on Remy. We had been on it once. We wanted to do it one more time. And generally what we did is we would try to wait till a time when the attraction lines were not that long. But we didn't get to go on Peter Pan's flight because I didn't feel like spending 16 euros to get on it. We have one at home, and I don't recall it being that different that it was going to be that much worthwhile to go on a 2.5 to 3 minute attraction. So,
Right.
but anyway, so it sounds like they give you a cheaper base price, and then you can add things on to come up more to the price.
Right.
But we found we were able to get on a lot of the things we wanted to without needing to do that anyway. That a lot of times the attraction waits weren't that bad. If they were long, we waited till the lines came down. So they were busy. There were a lot of people there, and there's only 2 parks, so it's not like you can distribute them out like you have at Walt Disney
That's
World.
very true.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. With you saying that Hollywood Studios was only a half-day park, do you think at this point of our conversation, do you think you needed the 5 days that you had?
Well, we had 4 days. So
4.
we
Okay.
went into the park 5 days. We were there 4 nights. The last day when we were leaving, we weren't leaving the airport till 5 in the evening. And if we knew that the flight was going to be canceled, we could have taken longer. But so because of the rain, we spread things out, took things at a more relaxed pace, and 4 days was good. I would have been happy to be there for 4 days. We would certainly have been able to see everything we wanted to and go back and see things another time. We've been there before, as I said, so I think new people coming to it, I think 4 days would be a good number of days to see everything. It's going to be a whole lot better once they get the studios redone. But
Right.
I'd go into Disneyland every single day. They have a great Disneyland park.
Now, if there was one thing you could take from Disneyland Paris, from either park, and bring it over to Walt Disney World, what would it be, and where would you put it? And let's exclude the restaurants because we know you
We already said
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we already said 2 of them we'd bring back.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm trying to think if there is a unique attraction. So I said there's things I like about Pirates, but I'm not going to swap the Pirates out. There's things I like about Phantom Manor, but I think it would be the Dragon. Or I'm sorry, let me. So it's somewhere between the Dragon and the arcades.
Yeah. Okay.
But attraction wise, I can't think of an attraction. We have Remy's. I don't do the Tower of Terror. I don't do Crush's Coaster. They have Star Tours, which their Star Tours is pretty much the same as ours.
Yeah.
I really
So
I
there's
like
nothing that
Pirates and
stands
what's
out.
that?
There's nothing that really stands out. And their Cars Land there is what
Oh,
you've said is just not the same as Disneyland in California.
yeah. It was fun to do the Cars road trip and get to see Catastrophe Canyon again, which we hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wouldn't bring Avengers Campus to Walt Disney World. I like it in Disneyland. I'm glad it's there.
No.
So I wouldn't bring that in there. No, yeah, to me, it would either be the arcades or the Dragon.
Yeah, I know this is a little bit off topic, but I like the fact that there are things at Disneyland that we don't have here at Disney World because it gives us a reason to go to Disneyland.
Right.
I wish, though, that they didn't have a Star Wars land at Disneyland so it would give people a reason on the West Coast to come to the East Coast. And there still probably is reasons because we have 4 parks here, but I'd like to see bigger differences in the parks than we've already seen.
Yeah. I do like, so they don't have a Tomorrowland in Disneyland. They have a Discoveryland. So it's their version of Tomorrowland. They have Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain, which was closed. So we didn't get a chance to ride that. So I'm not quite sure what their height. It's a Star Wars themed Hyperspace Mountain. Their Discoveryland is Jules Verne-esque. So it's themed that way from the 19th century Jules Verne. They've got their own Nautilus. So there's a walk through Nautilus attraction where you can see the Nautilus outside in this body of water. And then you go down underground and it simulates you walking through the Nautilus and through the hallways within the Nautilus itself. It's not, it's just a walkthrough attraction.
I would have liked that better than the one we went on.
Yeah.
They have some of, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think what else. They have Star Tours there. They have a wonderful restaurant there, the Hyperion.
Wharf?
No. I think it's just called the Hyperion, where they have this tiered seating, and they actually have a performance venue.
So the more you spend, the higher up you sit?
Well, when we were there, the performance venue was these kids dance troupes that were in there. I don't know if they were competing or they're just there to perform and as part of their practice. And so it was all low key, but they had an awful lot of seating, and you could just sit there, relax, and you could look down and watch what was going on there. And it was all undercover, so it was nice and comfortable, and a really good counter service restaurant there.
How would you rate their fireworks shows compared to ours here?
Well, I can't. So I said we went to go see the show at the castle, and the first part of it was supposed to be the drone show. And so they had the projections and they have some water effects, but they didn't have the drone. And so we waited through part of it, but the drone part of it was the big part. So since that wasn't there, we left early. They have a 10-minute, I believe, fireworks show after that. From what I'd heard from others that seen it, it was okay, but it wasn't great. So we didn't hang around to see it. So my sense is the drone show is fantastic. The fireworks are nice fireworks, but they're nothing spectacular, is what I understand. So, but I can't say because I didn't see them.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions I have. Can't think of anything else I would want to ask.
I'm trying to see if there's any big other things I wanted to call out. They do have a kind of mobile ordering for their restaurants. So for their counter service, they don't call it mobile ordering. They call it click and collect. And my experience was those lines were very short, if not non-existent.
Oh.
So if you had ordered things, you could come and pick them up. So it was very convenient. So it doesn't seem like it's caught on there yet. I'm not quite sure why.
So the food at the quick services, did you find that it was good or better than? Well,
I don't think it was good, or I thought there were some that were not as good, some that were at least as good. So it didn't. They had enough of it, I think, but I wouldn't say it was miles above or miles below. I think it's probably similar.
Now, the food I assume is very different there than here, so you probably can't compare it.
Well, they have hamburgers and fries there. I don't remember
Oh,
if they.
French fries, France.
Golly.
Were the croissants
Well,
better than the States?
I'm not a croissant connoisseur, but everybody I know that was with me that likes croissants said their croissants are better.
How
Okay.
about chocolate mousse?
Where did I have
Now, the chocolate mousse in France here in Epcot used to be the best I've ever had. Now it's very good, but it's lost a little bit somewhere since the worldwide event that occurred in 2020 happened. It hasn't been the same.
I can't remember where if I did have chocolate mousse. Not quite sure.
See, I'm a croissant fan, so.
You know what's got the best croissants? Trader Joe's.
Yes, I know. Michelle got me on those.
One of the things I did notice, there were a lot of people that were vaping. And you would see
in the parks?
In the parks, I saw people carrying, and I read what the regulations were, and I forget whether it was you could only have cigarettes or vaping in designated areas like they used to have at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
But when we were in the attraction line sometimes, I mean, I saw a lot of people, they would like have them in their pockets. And all of a sudden, like they'd pull it out and take a drag and put it back. So I don't know if they were allowed to have them when they were out in the open, but even in the line, sometimes people would sneak them. So those were very popular there. I mean, there is more smoking in Paris and in Europe than there is here.
Yeah.
It's always been that way.
Let's see here. One of the things that's very different in Europe, I think we talked about this last time, tipping is not so big over there. They pay them a different wage, and so tipping's not so big.
Tipping's out of control here. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great if employers just paid people a good wage.
Right. You know what? I'd rather go someplace where they raise the prices higher and I didn't have to tip.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be all included, and I'd know that my server was getting a nice, decent wage.
Yeah.
Except for some of the newer attractions, they didn't have the greatest queues. And I noticed, especially in Fantasyland, so we'd be going to get on the Snow White dark ride or the Pinocchio dark ride, or they'd have these ropes and they'd adjust them to make the line move a different way, but they always waited till the line was spilling out into the walkways before they'd reconfigure it. So that kind of got in the way a bit. They still have an Earful Tower over at the studios. Like
I've seen a picture of that. Somebody posted that. Yeah.
Yeah. Studios under construction. They do have some meal plans there, and they were pretty popular. So you'd prepay for a meal. So it's kind of like the dining plan. I don't know what the prices would be, you know, how worthwhile it was, but a lot of their menus were based around that. So you'd get an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. And most of their sit-down dining, that's what the menu was. So even if you weren't on the dining plan, you could buy a la carte, but it was pretty much structured. So you'd pay for the meal plan, even if you hadn't paid for it ahead of time. So their menus were much simpler, but the food was good. The sit-down food was very good. Talked about the extra magic hours. I don't know that I have anything else really. I talked about the shooting arcade. They did allow you to check bags to go back to. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that true? We didn't do it, so I don't know if you could check bags to go back to your resort. They did have security. So once you got through security, we were in security all the time. So we actually had to go through security to get into our hotel. So we went through scanners, our bags got scanned. We had the metal detectors when we went into the hotel. But so long as the only thing we did was our hotel, the Disneyland Park, the Studios Park, and the Disney Village, we never had to go through security again. So the Disney Village and the 2 theme parks were all under one security screening. If you were coming from Hotel New York, you had to come into the village, so you had to get screened. If you came from the train station, you had to go through a big security area, or if you're coming from their parking lots, there was a big screening area. But then once you're in that bubble, you never had to go through security again, which was great.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of how Disneyland was, wasn't it? Where we went through security once and we could go to
Well, yeah, once you get into the Esplanade,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can go back and forth between the
in
attractions.
downtown Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. So did I. It's a little different here in Orlando, so
Yeah.
I'm okay with what they do here. you know.
Everybody has their own entity.
Yeah. And you know what? The more security, the better off we are. All right.
So we know
yeah.
your favorite meal was Waltz then?
Oh boy, that was a tough one between Waltz and Remy's. Those were our 2 favorite. I
Okay.
like them both a lot.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Unless, John, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think it gives you a good flavor of it anyway.
It did. It did a
Yep.
lot.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this show, part 2. Next week, we'll be back again with another episode of the WDW Fan Zone Show. Please remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already to the show. We do have an app on an Apple app. Say that 10 times fast. If you've got an iPhone, you can subscribe to that for free and have easier access to the show and everything else we've got going on here, which isn't a lot. No, I'm kidding. So until next time, bonjour, everybody. Be safe, be yourself. Bye-bye.
Well, we're talking about Paris again this week, and we talked about dining, so I have to leave you with, come on and lift your glass. You've won your own free pass to be our guest. If you're stressed, it's fine dining we suggest. Be our guest, be our guest, be our guest. Bonsoir, mes amis. Good night.
Have a magical night. Stay safe. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And remember to pack your sunscreen and your rain ponchos.